TruthSeekah and/or its affiliates are not responsible for any strange phenomena that may occur during or after listening to this podcast, which may include the following: heightened senses of awareness, psychic abilities, UFO sightings, alien contact, time loss, out-of-body experiences, ringing in the ears, ESP, lucid dreaming, increased synchronicities, astral projection, telepathy, stronger intuition, levitation, miraculous healings, and/or remote viewing. Please be advised to listen at your own discretion.
Won't you come and take me away? I just wanna be with you. Won't you come and take me away? To a place to walk on troubled seas, faith to stand when I don't believe. I just wanna be with you. Won't you come and take me away? I just wanna be with you. Won't you come?
You are now locked into the TruthSeekah Podcast.
Gargoyles! Psychics! Everything's ungodly! Dark savage!
Streaming live at TruthSeekah.com.
She's not a Christian!
Give it up, y'all.
Your portal to the paranormal, esoteric, and all things spiritual.
She's tampering in dark-sided stuff!
And now, your host, TruthSeekah.
Ladies and gentlemen, how's it going? I'm TruthSeekah. This is the TruthSeekah Podcast. Thank you guys for joining me today on this beautiful episode. We got a good show lined up for you guys today, and looking forward to get back in the swing of things. I only did one show last week. I think it was Monday. Sometimes the guests aren't able to make it, and then sometimes they don't really have an idea about what to talk about. But once you get me going, I can kind of start talking. So got a good show planned for you guys today. Got some more stuff coming up this week, so excited about that. Some extra podcasts lined up as well. So want to give a huge shout out and say a huge thank you to everybody who is supporting the podcast and my music via Patreon. Couldn't do this without you guys, so again, thank you so much. Some of the newest patrons we have within the last week or two, I'm going to give a shout out to those guys who are just coming on board, joining the fold. Shout out to Blake Snap. Welcome, my friend. Mac Daddy. What's up, Mac Daddy? Thank you for joining. Anthony Wozniak. Ed Kroll. Thank you guys. Welcome to the team. So blessed to have you guys believing in the vision that we're building here with the podcast and the community and everything that we're doing on the back end. So if you'd like to support, you can head out over to patreon.com/TruthSeekah. The link is in the description if you'd like to check that out. You get access to my entire discography of music, which is 10 plus albums, as well as all the new unreleased music that's over there as well. So as soon as I get done with the song, it's mixed and mastered and uploaded to Patreon. And so hopefully you guys check that stuff out, and some really cool stuff that's available that's not available to the general public. It's just there for the patron supporters only right now. It's usually months ahead of time before it's released to the general public. So you get access to that, as well as the School of the Mystics, which is what we do every Thursday night, which is like the community aspect to what we're building here with the podcast and everything. We like to get together, have discussion, hang out, and we go through courses together and just build together as a community. Last couple weeks we just been doing hangouts. Haven't really been diving into any material, but we're about to get back into some more material. I got some messages on Patreon. People are who aren't able to make it on Thursday night, so we usually record those episodes for people to go back and listen to on Patreon, and I haven't been doing that lately, only because it's been just hangout and discussion and stuff. So once we get back into the courses, either this week or next, all that stuff will be recorded and uploaded for people who aren't able to join us live on Thursday nights. So you get access to all that stuff by becoming a patron at any level of giving. Anywhere from $1 a month is awesome. So thank you guys for all the support. Special shout out to Benny Ween. Special shout out to Adam Brink for supporting at the diamond body level. With that being said, without further ado, I'm going to bring in today's guest, and I'm speaking with Joy Elaine today. Joy, welcome to the podcast. How are you?
Hi, I'm great. Thanks for having me on.
Oh, I'm excited to talk to you. When I looked at your repertoire and your books and the things that you're bringing to the table, it's a wide range of topics. So it's really hard just to pinpoint. I like to kind of name the podcast as we go live, just to kind of give a general idea about what we're talking about. But you cover a lot of topics in your books and experiences throughout your life. So we're pretty much just, I guess, going to do an overview of everything that you bring to the table. And I'm sure I can pull out some questions in and out of there that I already have. So if you want to start off, it'd be awesome just to kind of give an overview about who you are, what you bring to the table, and maybe just kind of set the books up a little bit would be great.
All right. Thanks, Derek. So there's 6 books that I've self-published, and they are the Joy Chronicles. My name is Joy, so I thought that was a good title for the books. And they are my experiences with ascended masters, dragons, fairies, leprechauns, and other beings that we think, many of us may think that they're mythical. Well, it's kind of hard when you're not seeing something to actually maybe believe in it. That's some of my close friends are in that position. But the thing is, they are not on the same dimension that we are. We've had interactions in the past, if you can imagine, with dragons that weren't so great. And so in the second book that I wrote called Blossoming of Love, I work with Gia, that's the embodiment of Earth, to restore the dragons to Earth, because we'd actually killed them off 2 times in the past. And she brought them back to the 7th dimension. So that's a pretty safe place, because Earth and everything on Earth is now in the 5th and 6th dimensions. So that's a little bit of an overview of where we are with with our evolution. I've studied a healing modality called Serenity Vibration Healing since 2003. And the work that I did with that helped me get clear enough to bring this information in the books through. And also I learned how to energetically travel to different dimensions and different times. So that's where these experiences are occurring. Initially in the first book, which is called Path of Sweetness, I step onto this 10th dimension onto an Ashtar Command ship.
That's beautiful. And so my opening question usually is I want to go back to where this stuff started for you. Like, what were some of the early experiences that you've had? Was it when you were a little kid? Most people, they have these weird things happening to them when they're a little kid, and beings coming in their room, or being able to see fairies while they're in the forest playing and things like that. Did you ever have those encounters when you was a little kid?
I did. But see, the thing is, I grew up and I forgot. So I grew up on a farm, and for the first 8 years of my life, I was what I considered a wild child. I mean, I was outside, as long as the weather was halfway decent, I was outside barefooted, running around on our farm, interacting with the cows and the animals we raised, and climbing the trees, and just living really, really close to nature. And of course, that's the way that if you want to connect with nature spirits, then you need to be out in nature. So I didn't really even, we moved from that farm when I was about 8, and I was devastated. I wanted to stay there. I just couldn't imagine living another place. Even though we only moved about a mile down the road, I cried and cried and cried. And it wasn't until about 4 years ago when I was speaking with one of my angel guides, I said, "Is there a fairy I could talk to?" And he said, "How about you connect with Shalaya? That's the fairy you knew when you were a little girl." See, I'd forgotten that. And so when I energetically connected with her, it was like I cried, She said she was sad when I left too, because, I spent a lot of time climbing trees, and she said she would sit with me in the trees. And so then she said, "If you come back, we can climb a tree together. And I said, well, I'm not so much into climbing trees. She said, well, then if you just take off your shoes and walk on the ground, I can connect with you. So if you're really interested in connecting with the fairies, that's the best way. Spend some time outside and just get quiet. Maybe take your shoes off, lay down on a blanket in the grass, and just ask for the fairies to communicate with you. They will. And eventually you'll start maybe hearing them or seeing them if you haven't so far. Well, as everybody sees fairies when they're little, when they're a baby. Mm-hmm. And then we get a little bit older and we just kind of maybe, that's not supported in our family or our society. And so we just forget. We just let that go and pretend that there are no such things. Mm-hmm. That was how I reconnected with the fairy. And I did that at the end of the first book. And then books 2 through 6, there's just lots of fairy information.
That's the thing, is where it connects with your imagination, right? Because we have all of these different, things that we're encountering, and a voice told me this, and I seen this in my dream, or whatever these different ideas are. But when that realm crosses over into our realm, is when things kind of get real, right? Where does imagination come in to play with it? Because there's a lot of people who are experts in this field, or so-called, maybe self-proclaimed experts, but they've never had a physical encounter. They can tell you all of this lore, magic, how to see or hear fairies, but they've never actually seen anything. And it surprises me, as all the people I've talked to on here, they've never had those physical encounters, and that's like the juicy stuff. It's like, hold on, something's going on, versus it's in your imagination. Right. I know your imagination, it plays a big part in right, it does. Yeah, and like, I'm saying, talking to them telepathically, things like that. But when it crosses over, what were some of the first times when you knew that it was real? Was it dealing with this fairy speaking with you, and then you seen a manifestation, or how did that come about?
See, I started practicing serenity vibration healing in 2003, and that helped me start to get really, really much clearer, improve my clairaudience, my clairvoyance, so that I started seeing things. I'd been hearing and seeing things at night a lot. Many of us do that because we're in a kind of relaxed state. Mm-hmm. So, but you wake up and you forget what you saw or you heard. So I've been keeping for probably 20 years. I've been keeping a little digital voice recorder under my pillow, and I wake up just enough to record what I heard. And then when I wake up in the morning, I'm like, oh wow, that helped me to get more in tune with what was happening. And then when I started seeing the fairies, and I've actually only seen them a couple of times, so it's not like it really isn't an everyday experience for most people, and it's not really everyday for me, but I hear very, very clearly. So when you hear a fairy speak, or when you telepathically get a message, then there's no need to try to convince yourself that they are real. I mean, it's just when you have those kinds of experiences, people when you hear another person's thoughts, or when you experience that paranormal event, nobody can tell you that you didn't experience that. So that was encouraging for me. And the coolest thing is, you're wondering, well, when are people going to see these fairies, and when are they going to see the leprechauns, and when are they going to see the dragons? We're going to see all of them when we're in the 8th dimension. They'll be back, because at that point in our evolution, we won't be killing anything. We'll be able to coexist with those species and those beings.
Now, how are we able to raise our vibration? So whenever we are in a relaxed state, or if there's things that you can do and ways that you can train yourself to see into those dimensions. So like through meditation, through trance state, things like that, are we able to kind of raise our vibration to kind of be in both dimensions at once when we're able to see a lot of that stuff cross over?
Well, the good news is that we're all raising our vibration no matter what we do, because that's just the process that Earth is in. We're all lifting up. Now, it may not seem like that. I mean, there's a lot of chaos going on, but that's stuff that's coming up to be released. So, I mean, raising your vibration, that's a wonderful phrase that you brought to the table. I'm really glad you said it, because it can be simple. It can be simple things like stop watching the news.
Yeah.
Be a little more loving to yourself, or your kids, or your neighbors. find a job that you really love instead of one that you hate. You know, if you follow your passion in that regard, that's really important, because we've got the society that's just, they're going to work every day and they just hate it. I mean, how joyful can that be for you? You know, we came here, we incarnated to be here at this time because this is the pinnacle time in Earth's evolution. It's a happening place. So consciously or unconsciously, everybody that's here now is taking part in this elevation, this evolution of Earth. So I think it's more fun to do it consciously. And the Joy Chronicles, the books that I've written, give you insights into what's happening and how you can be a part of the work we're doing. There's descriptions in the back of each of the books, how you can take part in the transmissions we send to Earth. I mean, this started in 2014. First transmission was April of that year. So you get a chance to actually travel in time, and it's easy. You're just doing it with your energy body, and it's easy to do. You just sit down and you look at the date in the book where this transmission happened, and you say, hey, I'm just going to shut my eyes and I'm just going to pretend that I'm stepping onto that spaceship, and I'm going to take part in this work that Joy and Tonas, he's the Ashtar Commanders that I met in that first book, are sending to Earth. So you can send gifts to yourself from the past. How cool is that?
Mm-hmm. It gets into just like some really weird questions. It's like, because I understand, like we're trying to make sense of it all, right? Everybody has these different stories that they bring to the table, and we got to figure out who's telling the truth, who's making it up, what's, you know, are these good benevolent beings, or are they demons masquerading as angels of light, if you let some people tell it. So, but I understand that there's a scripture in the Bible that says, as a man thinketh in his heart, so shall it be. And that pretty much like whatever you can believe for, whatever you're looking for, you're going to find it. If you want to see fairies, if you want to communicate with them, if you want to see them, if you want to communicate with gnomes and elementals, or you want to contact the light beings or the Ashtar Command, all of this stuff, you can do whatever you put your mind to. It starts off with your imagination. It's that weird blurry line is like, is it already real and I'm able to tap into those areas, or is it real because I believe it and I'm looking for it and it kind of becomes a part of my reality? Because there's a lot of people who will never experience this stuff ever, but we've experienced so much, and you've encountered so much over your life. So where does it begin with? Is it like, because whatever you're looking for, you're going to find, whether it's goods, bad, whatever outcome, fairies, entities, alien, you're going to find them. Whether they exist out there or they exist because you believe they exist. That's some weird in between realms there. But how much does that play in wanting to move forward and saying, are these real? Does it start with an idea of like, hey, we exist, won't you look for us or something? Or we're going to send these books to you, or you're going to see this in a movie and we're going to speak to you through that movie and get you to encounter us? Like, how does that really work with us pursuing this? Because it could be kind of weird. Like, hey, what are you doing? I'm trying to talk to the fairies. What? You're trying to talk to the fairies? What fairies? You know, they don't exist. You're making it up.
Yeah. Well, you know, we do create our own reality. Individually and co-creatively, we're all creating that. And so in the past, you know, these subjects have not even been able to be talked about. I mean, forget talking about fairies when I was growing up. I mean, I'm one of the baby boomers, you know, we're one of the quote older generations. But, you know, I've seen things in the future, okay? First of all, the parameter that I set for the beings that I connect with are that they are of the light, and they are in the highest good for me and for the universe. So I'm not messing around with any of the lower energies, any adversarial energies. That's not where I am. I've got shields and I've got things in place, but I don't have any interactions with those kinds of beings. So when I'm talking, the people I'm talking with are like ascended masters or galactic masters, like Sananda. Jesus is one of the people that I speak with. Osiris and Isis and Hathor and Thoth, the Egyptian pantheon, we thought they were gods, and they have the abilities of gods, so that's why we say they're gods. But they really have the abilities that we will eventually have. can I talk about duality and non-duality, Derek?
Yes.
Okay. So Earth is a dual world, and it's always been that way since the very, very beginning of Earth being created. And humanity has existed in duality. What's duality? Duality is there's struggle. There's the right, there's the wrong, there's the good, there's the bad, there's the hot, there's the cold, there's the opposites, okay? And there's always resistance to what we want to create. Now that, you may have noticed that time between we want something to manifest and the time that it actually manifests is getting shorter. I don't know if you've noticed that or not, but
yes.
Time is speeding up in that regard. And so as we're rising, as you're personally taking control of your own life and saying, hey, I'm going to choose things that are good for me. I'm going to choose things that make me feel good, joyful, and happy. You raise your vibration. And when enough of us start doing that or continue doing that, many of us have been doing that, we lift collectively our energies. So as I said, we're in the 5th and the 6th dimensions physically right now. Of course, we're all energy, so we exist everywhere, right? I mean, we're more than the physical body. So we're energetically, we're everywhere. So as we move up into 7 and then finally into the 8th dimension is the first non-dual dimension of Earth. Non-duality means, and hear me now, instant manifestation. You think, I want a diamond on my hand, you have a diamond on your hand. You think, today I'd like to be a couple inches taller, and I want to look like I'm about, 25, and that manifests. There's no aging, there's no illness, there's no hatred, there's no war, there's none of the kinds of things that we experience. It's instantly manifesting. So I'm all for that because I've seen myself in the future. I look like I'm about 23. I didn't really even know who I was. I had to go to the council and I say, who's that woman? I say, that's you. I like that. I like the possibility that I could be that way. Now, between 7th dimension and 8th dimension, there's a barrier. So people that are still into hatred, into wars, and all the kind of stuff that we've been experiencing will not move into that 8th dimension. Mm-hmm. But Gia was the embodiment of Earth, told me she's not going to leave anybody behind. So we all have that option available. It's just about, taking care of your own stuff. Duality and non-duality, we're in this mix of moving out of the duality into non-duality.
Is that a bad thing? Because I found a lot of peace in embracing the duality, and I'm not just all this and I'm not just all that. There is a balance in all things, Right.
That's fine. I mean, that's a good way to deal with the reality that we're currently existing in. It's just going to get easier. It's going to be easier that as more people start, following their dreams, following their passions, start, tuning in to who they really are and deciding who they really want to be. It all becomes more graceful. And that's really what the books are about. They're really about having fun while letting people know what's happening and giving them a chance to be part of what's happening in a more conscious manner. Okay?
Yeah, that's key.
So,
having fun while doing it versus, I don't want to be here. I don't like the, I'm just mad at everyone and nobody believes what I believe, and I'm just discouraged. Like, that's not a good way to approach
How's that
it,
going to get you anywhere? Nope. Yeah. And, we've all done that. And I've got enough tools in my toolbox, my energy toolbox, that I can work on myself and let some of that stuff go, because it doesn't empower you. It doesn't lift you up. It doesn't make you happy. We just get in this habit of looking at what we don't like.
Yeah.
And of course, that just feeds that situation. If we can shift our thinking to start focusing on what we do choose, what we do want.
Yep.
Now look for the good in your life. Look for the good in yourself. That's the magic key to do, and it can be a little bit challenging.
Now, you're talking about challenging. What was some of the opposition that you faced when you embraced your destiny when you said, okay, this is who I am, and I'm going to walk in and I'm going to tell people, I'm going to start writing books and go public? Because sometimes that's a big dark night of the soul, a big gulf and a gap in between of like, right. I know who I am, but I have to do it in secret. I can't let nobody know that I believe this stuff. Like, how long was that gap, and what type of opposition did you face when you finally say, you know what, I don't care what people think, this is who I am?
Right. Well, luckily I have a really good support group with the people that practice the surrender vibration healing. We connect with each other and support each other. So I have people that have experienced the kinds of things that I've experienced. So, we're of like mind. Now, family is another whole story.
Yeah.
All right. I have 2 boys. Well, they're not boys. They're young men. 35 and 41. And I told the younger one a few years ago when I first started bringing this information to, I said, we don't have to die in the future. And he goes, Mom, everybody dies. Well, that's been true, and who would want to live forever if they didn't feel good or if they had an old body? And that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about perpetually regenerating bodies in the 8th dimension and looking however you want and feeling great. So, I said, my sons want to believe me. And my older son said, Mom, when I see a dragon, I will be on your team 100%. So, you can't, if you experience something personally and it's vitally important for you to share it, you can't let what people say stop you.
Mm-hmm.
That was my main goal in writing this first book, because I wasn't going to write a book. I thought, what am I going to talk about? A friend of mine who's I work with energetically said, I see you writing all these books. And I kept saying, no, she can't be right. And then when I met this Ashtar Commander that I talked about in the first book, stepped aboard his spaceship, I told you, his name is Tonas. He's over 25 million years old. I've seen him. He looks like he's 30, okay? Strikingly handsome. I wasn't expecting that. And when I did that, I thought, and I learned all these wonderful things that he was telling me. I knew that they were true. The masters that I'd been working with had also told me those things. And so I thought, I've got to tell people. I've got to let people know, give them hope, encourage them, tell them that Earth is really magical, and they're going to be able to accept that and feel that magic more and more and more as we continue to evolve. We are magical. Human beings, just the ordinary human being is a magical being.
Mm-hmm.
And we're going to remember that. We're going to start being able to manifest those abilities that we read about. Teleporting, telepathy, clairvoyance, clairaudience, all those kinds of mastery gifts. That's our future. Those are in our future. And some of us have experienced those already. I've experienced telepathy. I'm teleporting with my energy body now when I visit these different realms, but soon in the future, I'll be able to do that with my physical body. And I love the idea of just saying, I think I'll go to Santa Barbara today, and poof, there I am. Mm-hmm. So, if you don't believe it, that's fine. Everybody has their own little paradigm that they can be maybe stuck in.
I think it's important to approach everything with a little bit of skepticism, though, right? I mean, you wouldn't want to just take, everybody has a truth, everybody has an encounter. Some of it contradicts their other stories or contradicts the next person or whatever. But so I think it's healthy to approach all of this stuff with some skepticism versus just taking.
I would agree.
Taking everything.
You know what? You know where the real answer is? It's in your heart.
Mm-hmm.
Just listening to your heart, listening to your own inner guidance. I could speak from now until 3 weeks from now, and some people are just going to say this is baloney, and they're perfectly their right to believe that. But if you tune in, if you stop and think about it, and just tune into your heart, that's the guidance that we're going to be using more and more, our heart consciousness. I mean, I'm not saying not to use your brain. That's important. We're taught to think, but you're not going to find the answers in this really here. The most important answers are going to come from brain mixed with heart.
Yeah. That's where it becomes real. When you have these thoughts and ideas and things like that, that you believe in your mind, or have these awesome ideas, even in your heart, but you have to start speaking them out. You got to start creating it, confessing it, and you start seeing things around you change. You start seeing your job situation change. You start seeing your friends start changing and stuff like that, versus just being a victim of life or just being on default, and you just got all these friends around you who don't believe in you, and they're kind of toxic in your relationship with them and things like that. But you can start creating that stuff as you believe it. If you can believe it, you can create it and bring it into your reality. And you know what I'm saying? Why wouldn't you? Why would you want to have a bunch of friends around you who don't support you, and they envy you and all this kind of, you can create whatever you want. That dream job, you don't have to be stuck at this job. I don't care what kind of circumstances they are. You can create the job that you want for yourself. If you're creating a need, if you're filling a need that exists, and I think everybody has those things within them that we can do. It's just being able to tap into it and believing it, because we've been told that, you know, your best days are behind you, and you know, you should have tried 20 years ago or 10 years ago, and now you have a family and kids, so you're kind of stuck where you are. You know, you start believing all of that stuff, and you just settle for default. But understanding the power of creativity, the power of your spoken word, and your thoughts have the power to create. That's why I really like the scriptures. It talks about renewing your mind over and over, and making sure that you're thinking beautiful thoughts, and you're filling yourself with love and unity and things like that, because the mind is powerful. The things that you're thinking about, you're going to create them. You're going to expect them. That's why when we're always in worry and doubt and stressing about bills and fears, when we keep thinking about that stuff just genuinely just keeps coming back to us. Right. Versus thinking about beautiful things and expecting blessings and expecting God to use us and help us to change other people's life. You have to rewire your brain, but when you start moving like that, believing like that, you start seeing that stuff happen in your everyday life, and all of those beautiful experiences that biblically the disciples, Jesus, they all experience healings and miracles, and dealing with angelic beings on higher realms of density, traveling to other dimensions, and all of that stuff. They encountered that stuff on a daily basis. So it's really cool just whenever like all the holy books and some of the ancient books talk about this kind of stuff, because I deal with a lot of people who are coming out of religion, and they're scared to have this conversation, you know, but it's in the book. You're talking about leaving your body and traveling to other realms, but you said one day you're going to be able to take your body with you. The Apostle Paul had some very similar encounters where it was so real he didn't know if he took his body with him or his just spirit traveled to these other realms or whatever. So a lot of people feel like this condemning spirit when it comes to religion in the hierarchy, but the Bible really promotes all of this kinds of stuff. That's why it's really beautiful to talk about this stuff.
Yeah, I like when you were talking about mastering. We call it mastering the mind. And I would like to direct people to my website, because some of the blogs that I've written, one is about, you know, self-love, how to love yourself more. Dreaming the future, and I've woven into several of the blogs the serenity vibration healing work that I've done, so that you can actually do some energy work yourself. You know, we're working with the Creator, we're working with God, and it's not anything that it's only the serenity vibration healing work is put in place by the Creator and your God self. So though that part of you knows the truth of your nature, knows that it's connected with and is part of God. Anyway, those blogs, like there's some great ones on the fairies, there's some ones on the dragons, there's one on self-love, there's one on a bridge into non-duality, where that's a technique that's very simple. You visualize an energy bridge that starts right where you are and leads into that higher dimension, and you step onto your bridge, because you know, if you're like me in the past, when I had experienced somebody that I loved or was close to me was in trouble, I would do this. I'd dive right in, try to help them. Well, you know, that both of us ended up in trouble then. Mm-hmm. So it's called enabling, I think you say, the old word. Anyway, you step on your bridge, Your bridge of light, which is above this turmoil that might be going on in your life. You've got somebody that's, addicted to something, or you've tried to help them, it's not worked. You step on your bridge and you just visualize the bridge, and it will be there for you. And you see that turmoil just flowing underneath the bridge. And how you help those other people in your life is you just send them love. You stay on your bridge, on a neutral place, on your higher dimensional location, and you send them love. That's called the Bridge to Non-Duality. It's on my website, on my blog.
Awesome. Talk a little bit about your information regarding the Ashtar Command. How did you start dialogue with them? Like, how did those early conversations go? How did they approach you, or did you approach them? How did that work out?
Yeah, I approached them. I had been using the serenity vibration healing for a long time to work on myself. And then I started looking around thinking, well, gosh, Earth could use some help too, because going back to that time I had as a child, I was very connected to nature. And so I started working with some of the healers, the energy healers that I'd worked with personally, and I knew that they had a high degree of integrity. I started putting together some of the things that they had done that didn't feel quite complete, and making them more complete by taking them to the Galactic Councils of Light. Those councils oversee everything that is applied to Earth. So I put together this energy package. It was having to do with the cities of light on Earth. And I just used my energy body, and I just said, I'm going to step on this Ashtar Command ship, because I'd learned about the Ashtar Command from this other healer. Sure enough, I'm on the ship. I went with a friend of mine who does serenity vibration healing also. And she was seeing better than I was at the time. She said, oh, he's really handsome. I'm thinking, oh, great. Well, okay. I hadn't been interested in any kind of a relationship for a long time. And she said, he looks like he's very smitten with you. And I'm thinking, what? And then she just asked him, are you smitten with her? And he goes, yes, very much so. And if she comes back, we can hold hands. And I'm like, okay, well, it was a little more than I was expecting, but I was so fascinating. Of course, I had to go back. And later, much later, and several books later, I learned that from Sananda, who's one of the ascended masters that I work with, that Tonas, that's the Ashtar Commander's name, Tonas and I had 785 or 6 incarnations together. And some of those, since they were on non-dual worlds, were still happening. All right. So it's no wonder that out of the 86 million Ashtar Command ships that were located above Earth at that time, 86 million, I stepped onto his ship. Now they're on higher dimensions, on like the 9th, the 10th dimension above Earth, so they wouldn't be visible to us. I mean, the thing about the Ashtar Command is they can keep people from coming here and taking things from Earth. But they can't just come down and fix everything like my son wants them to do. He said, Mom, why don't they just come down and fix this stuff? I said, what they can't is we have a free will planet. We get to choose what happens here. So the books that are written offer you a chance to vote. Your input is vital to our a graceful evolution and elevation. On my blog, there's a section called, on my website, joyelaine.com. There's a section of world missions. And there's probably 15 4-minute recordings of different ways that you can get involved in helping the Earth. One of them is working with the Ashtar Command. So 86 million ships, they are non-dual beings, and they are just here to support Earth. And they've been doing that for thousands of years.
Have you ever? So you said that it's been something that you've been done in the whether it's the dream state or just leaving your body. Have you ever had any of those encounters that showed up in the physical realm, whether it be seeing UFOs or strange lights in the sky and them communicating with you that way?
Well, when you talk the physical realm, there's so many different ways of being in the physical realm. And when I interact with these beings on the higher dimensions, I'm sleeping it and I wake up, or the books are actually, I'm sitting on the sofa in my front room, and I'm energetically transferring to these dimensions, and I'm speaking to them. And I've seen the genie that I meet in the first book. I've seen Tonas, the Ashtar Commander, when I'm doing that. So I don't know. I mean, they didn't manifest in my front room because, you know, they're not supposed to do that. Mm-hmm. They're supposed to stay in those higher dimensions.
Let me ask you this. Are you in, just, I want to be clear, are you in a relationship with one of these entities from Ashtar Command?
He said, Tonas, okay, so let me explain. In the studies that I do with the Ascended Masters, we occasionally move back in time to take tutorials to study with them in ancient times. And Tonas, and the second time I met him in this timeline, he told me he'd known me for 1 million years. He happened to see me at one of those ancient academies, and he wasn't allowed to talk with me because that would have been against the rules. You know, he couldn't approach me, and I didn't approach him. But he followed me through time to all the tutorials that I've taken since then, and that's been since before 2014. I forget when I actually started that. So then when he said, well, when he'd known me for 1 million years, I'm like, holy cow. And he's deeply in love with me. I love him, but I want to wait to experience the kind of love that they do in the higher dimensions, because there's no the relationships that I've experienced so far, you know, you end up wanting to fix the other guy, you know, and I don't want to do that anymore. I've avoided any kind of relationship. And he assures me that doesn't happen on the 8th dimension. You know, it's a different kind of love. It's an unconditional, full-on love that I think I've experienced from my children, but I've never experienced with another man. So it is a romance. Mm-hmm. It's a long-distance romance.
Yeah, that's interesting. Very interesting.
Yeah. And let me tell you something else. I've seen the future where we have 2 children together.
Wow.
I've seen the children. Because they don't have babies in the higher dimensions the way we do. It's the child is not conceived inside the mother. It's conceived in an energy nest, but that's a mother and father form between them, and in the space between them. And it takes about six hours for the baby to mature. Mm. And the baby is born with the memories of the entire genetic line of both the mother and father. So pretty magical.
Wow.
Yeah.
Let me ask you about dragons, because some people here want to know a little bit about the dragons. There's a lot of lore when it comes to dragons. They have, like in the Bible, it talks about the Leviathan, the behemoth, these type of creatures that maybe literally existed, maybe are spiritual entities or represent nations or people groups. But then again, if we look at the Chinese culture, we look at all the other cultures all over the world, dating back to ancient history, we always see these big statues and the veneration of the reptilian, the veneration of the dragon. What are your studies have shown you and experiences with the dragons?
Well, I talk with Gia. Remember I said that's the embodiment of Earth. She manifested an energy body to be part of the celebration we had in the first book in this series. And I asked her about dragons because, you know, it was kind of like I found out that things had been stolen from Earth, and I was kind of like, well, I want the things that belong to Earth back here. And she said, and she and Woonfred, she suggested I speak with Woonfred. And I said, well, okay. She said he was the Dragon King, and we actually killed off the dragons 2 times in the history of Earth. The last dragon was killed in 420 AD after Jesus was killed. So I said, okay, and in book 2, I used something that the fairies gave me and worked with Ia, and we brought back all the dragons. 4 million of them came back. I told you that she placed them on the 7th dimension, so they're not flying around the sky. So anyway, I talked with Woonfred, And she said, she told me that Woundford was a healer when he was first alive, and he was a golden dragon. And he has a really, really deep voice. I mean, you can imagine the dragon. He's told me he's 5 elephants tall and weighs 40 tons. He's one of the biggest dragons, and they do fly. I actually invited him to join this council that we back in old times, raising a dragon. I said, well, why didn't the parents try to rescue their baby? He said, well, they always did, but those they're really fire, and they do cause some situations with catching things on fire. So they're trying to teach the babies to be to be calm around humans, because they really want to coexist with us peacefully. I mean, 4 million dragons, flying in formation. Now they're not, they're not supported as well as they are in the, you mentioned China and England and, places like in Europe. People have more of an openness to believing in those kinds of beings. Here in the States, we're a little more skeptical. We're like, I don't know if that's really true or not. But, hang around. You're going to see them in the future.
Yeah, those are it's interesting, especially when we look at like the Game of Thrones and things like that. Yeah. All the dragons that are coming back into the lore and things like that now. People are obsessing with dragons. Very interesting.
Well, the 5th book in my series, a picture on the front of the dragon prince that was born Mother's Day 2015. And that is very accurate. I really worked closely with graphic designer and Woundford from the descriptions he gave me, that so that you get a look at what a dragon looks like. That baby was born; he was golden. Woundford said, it's traditional when the egg starts to crack open, they both parents breathe fire on it as the baby emerges, and they're like, oh boy. But that's just part of their ritual. So people, I've talked with a lot of people who mentioned that Game of Thrones. I never watched it. I just got a little bit into it, and it just was too violent for me. I'm really not into that. But dragons, are going to be part of our future in a peaceful way. So I'm excited about that.
Coexisting with the dragons and the serpents.
Yeah. Well, there's a species of reptilian that's not so good, but and I found that out in the book, but I really don't want to focus on that today.
Yeah, definitely. Well, go ahead and plug your website one more time. My internet's kind of going in and out right now, so I'm afraid I'm going to lose you here shortly.
Joy Elaine, JoyElaine.com. I'm on Facebook, and those are links on my website. I've got some great articles on my blog about leprechauns and fairies and King Arthur. King Arthur and Guinevere and the knights, several of his knights join our council in the 2nd book. I've got Abraham Lincoln, John F. Kennedy, Cleopatra, Mark Antony Caesar on the council in book 2, Blossoming of Love. And check out the blog. I think that if you're struggling with anything, different areas in your life, I think some of those articles will really be helpful. I mean, just tune in with your, heart consciousness and say, is this for me? I hope it is. I think it would fit a lot of people, because it's an easy way to start helping yourself. There's all the answers outside of you. So what? The answers that you intuit that are inside you, those are the ones that are important.
One last question here, and I'm going to take this question from the chat. Christy Folks wants to know if there are good fairies and bad fairies, or are they all good?
I'm glad she asked that question, because I've read those books about, you eat something in the fairy garden and you'll never leave, and they steal children. That is absolutely not true. There is no such thing as a bad fairy. Absolutely. If you don't remember anything about this interview, they aren't. They are earth keepers. They are about joy and love. And without the fairies, this is what Gia, Mother Earth, told me. She said, without the fairies, Earth would be dead. They support every living thing on Earth. All the trees, all the grasses, it's supported by the fairies. And the fairies exist everywhere except Antarctica, the Sahara Desert, and the ocean. Even if you live in a desert, as long as there's some kind of greenery, you're going to have a fairy garden there. And there's over 25 million fairies. They just cover the earth, and they'd love to interact with you. So get out there and work on the ground and say hi to your fairies.
Put your feet on the ground.
Yep, put your feet on the ground. Thank you for asking that question. That was great. I'm glad I had a chance to answer that.
Awesome. Well, I enjoyed this discussion, Joy, and love to have you back on again sometime in the future, and really enjoyed it. So you have a good one. Thank you.
Thank you, Derek. Blessings to you and yours.
All right. God bless. Joy Elaine, ladies and gentlemen. Joy Elaine, I'm sorry about the internet, man. This internet's something, I don't know what's going on. They got to fix it, though. I don't know. It's really ticking me off. I know I'm going in and out if you're watching this on the live stream. I believe that the audio portion will be good. If you missed that part about the dragons, I see some comments here where it was cutting in and out, but if you missed that, you want to rehear it, make sure you listen to it on the podcast end, because I'm pretty sure that the audio will be preserved on the actual podcast apps. So I'm recording this and I'll upload that audio. The internet provider, yeah, there's some crazy stuff going on. This interview got really intense really quick, man. Got really weird. A lot of them do. I'm just thinking to myself, like no disrespect, but like the more conversations I have with people, sometimes the less I believe a lot of this stuff. You know, there's a commonality when it comes to people who are into this stuff, man. You know, there's something, even with me, you know, I have to put myself on the chopping block too. Like, I'm reading some of your comments. Y'all are making me laugh. Must have been a fairy census to let you guys know. Chris Garner says it must have been a fairy census to actually know how many fairies. 25 million, I think the number was. 25 million fairies out there. No, there's just a commonality, man, with like people who are really far out there, and maybe it's supposed to be there. Maybe this is maybe the commonality is people who've come from a harsh upbringing, had things taken away from them, no stability, had to move around a lot, taken away from what was magical for them. There's this commonality there that causes people to go within and to withdraw from society, to withdraw from their peers, even in elementary school and middle school, and kind of go into the books and go into the fairy lore and go into Tolkien and all of that stuff. And all that stuff is beautiful and magical in itself. But there's a commonality there. Is that a character flaw that produces people who are unstable, who don't function well in society? Or is that a commonality that is a perfect concoction for people who are open to higher understanding, to look at things differently, to ask bigger questions and not be concerned or really moved with the carnality things of life or the things of this world? Too mystical, right? Because as you believe it, you create it, right? We've all got some crazy stories, right? I think that's one thing that links us together. But then it gets weird when you start having relationships with these angelic beings. I know, and I'm not the one to call demon and call this and call that, which I believe in that stuff. But I remember the last time that the angels wanted to have relationships with women, what happened? You know, Genesis 6, if you believe that narrative, that the angels looked upon the daughters of men and saw that they were fair and wanted to give them children. And let me show you what the children will look like. It gets weird. Tonas, the Ashtar Command, all of these type of entities, like just because I haven't experienced it doesn't give me the right to say that it's wrong or it doesn't exist. I mean, look at that, but just because you have experienced it doesn't give you the fact to say that it's right or truth, right? I mean, it gets really weird. Repeatability is one thing. It happening in your mind, happening in your imagination, happening in the dream state. To me, that's a little slippery. When it does cross over, that's mostly, and I'm taken back to the J.C. Johnson interview. Rest in peace, J.C. Johnson. But when I'm talking to him about spirituality and things that go bump in the night, he's into cryptozoology, and he says it becomes it lands in his realm or his field of study and research when something touches the ground, when something becomes physical. Ghosts and fairies and all of these things that live in other higher dimensions, aliens, whatever, is one thing. But when they exist and show up on the earth and move around and become physical beings, then it becomes something that I want to look into and research that we can actually track. And J.C. Johnson has been one to actually go out there and track these type of entities and Bigfoot and all of these crazy, excuse me, thunderbirds and things mentioned of in cryptozoology, things that put their feet on the earth, you know what I'm saying? And so that's the parts that interest me. And so there's a lot of people who I've talked to who haven't had those physical encounters. It's been, but what's real? The physical, just because it shows up physically doesn't mean it's more real than the spirit or the essence of something. The spirit of it, right? I mean, just because you can't see it doesn't mean it's not real. Look at the wind. I mean, look at, some people say God, I can't see God, but you see the essence and the life force of God, of the wind. You feel it. You're moved by it. It doesn't mean something isn't real just because you can't see it. There's so much stuff going on, even with this blasted internet, these signals being shot everywhere. Y'all can't see that, but you've experienced it, because I've been able to go live and talk to a lot of people at one time, or lack of when it's messing up, right? We're able to experience it. But it gets weird, especially the relationship thing. You know what I'm saying? So, and Chris is talking about psychology here. Why do you look for that stuff? Like, why do you need a relationship with an entity? Like, why do they want to be with you intimately? It's because you have failed relationships. Did you lose a husband that you were really close with? I mean, I've talked to those ladies, you know what I'm saying? And there were similar stories who were in failed marriages because of their work or whatever the case is, or the husband went out of wedlock. So it's okay, I got a husband who won't leave me. I mean, that even goes into the Christian psychology of it. I'm married to Christ. He'll never leave me. He'll never forsake me. Unlike some people, he will never leave me, never forsake me. So you can benefit from that ideology, that understanding, that truth. I talk about that on the aspect of a father, having a father walk out and leave me. But I now have a father who will never do that. And it's personified through Christ, through the Godhead, Father God. Why do you call God Father? Well, because he is, So that's the with God, like, we're just trying, okay, are we mixing it together? Like, we just got to have the conversation. Like, the name for God is Yah or Ahaya. Ahaya, Ashtar Ahaya means I am that I am, and I will be whatsoever I will be. And so essentially, like, the universal essence of God will be whatever you need him to be. If you need God to be a father, he'll be that. If you need him to be a mother, if you need it to be a husband, a friend, So you attract that. That's what you need, and that's what it shows up to you as, whatever you need at that specific time. And it becomes real to you, and other people won't experience that. And it's just this really weird realm, because we're talking about things that you can't see. We're talking about things that you can't experience. But when it comes to having relationships, extramarital relationships with entities, Chris Garner's posting the red flag. I seen that, because when it comes to having relationships with entities, man, like, I've tried to do some stuff like that in the past, years ago when I was young. End up getting possessed, man. End up getting possessed trying to have relationships with entities. Doing rituals out of the Satanic Bible and things like that, with making pacts with female demons, or whatever you want to call them. Just gets really weird, man. You have to draw a red flag. You have to use caution. You have to approach this with skepticism. But then again, just because I haven't experienced it, just because you haven't experienced it, doesn't mean it's not real. But there's those people listening who have experienced it, who knows all too well what it's like to feel that way. I do see that commonality, though, there with a lot of people who've been unstable. And me, I've been, had that childhood, moving from school to school. Father walked out looking for identity, looking for, and then you find it in these other, whatever you want to call this. But I do, it doesn't negate the fact that this stuff is real, or it exists. Just because you haven't experienced it, just because you haven't encountered it. I mean, that's one of the whole mysteries of this whole thing in general, is we're able to experience things that other people will never experience. That's a weird notion. I believe that. Biblically, I believe that. Like, I'll show you things that you don't know and can't find out. That's what a promise from God. Gets really, really slippery. But it's like the more I talk to people, man, it's I'm a skeptic. I'm Thomas, the doubter. I doubt it. You got to show me. Show me. We can go within, and we're opened up to a whole realm through spirituality, through our mind. We create things. We have imaginary friends that come back and speak to us when we're older. You know what I'm saying? Like, it gets insane. That's funny that somebody in the chat a while ago posted 667. That's kind of a synchronicity for me, because somebody, I don't know why you posted that, but I was listening to the radio yesterday on satellite radio, and the host was talking about somebody's address, an artist address, and it was 667, and he was talking about he was the neighbor of the beast. He wasn't the beast, but he was a neighbor of the beast. So, goodness, my dogs are barking. Yeah, I think man, insane. I want to give a shout out real quick to Dave with 5 to 9 zine. If you guys haven't seen, I'll just show it here for those watching. And if you want to see this this magazine here, you can go to you can actually go to 5to9zine.com and check this out. Buy it for $5. Really cool about this magazine. They did a feature on me, and they featured Danya on the cover. And if you guys are familiar with the TruthSeekah podcast, I interviewed Danya several months back. Really cool lady who's has a beautiful voice. She also is in, what was she into? Sufi? No, I can't remember it now, but she was into it was like the offshoot of the a Hindu tradition. I can't, for some reason the name is can't think of the name. Anyway, but they did a spread on me, and I'm just going to show this on camera right quick. And he did a spread on me and did an interview. It was really cool. So if you guys want to check that out, you can go to 5to9zion.com, pick it up for $5. Make history. So yeah, shout out to Dave and 5to9zion for putting this together, doing a featurette on your boy, asking me about life and all this cool stuff. So yeah, Danya was a really cool guest I had on here too, so that's a series as well. Sherry says, sounds like her imagination, casting down all imagination that exalts itself against the knowledge of God. Here's the thing though, like, which parts of that cast itself against the knowledge of God, and which parts of the imagination does it take to believe in the higher realms, to even believe in Christ? Like, we're talking about, like, I'll just say it, like, that lady believes some pretty far out there stuff, some pretty weird stuff. But as far as Christianity and the Bible and the church, there's some far out stuff in those books too, right? There's some pretty far out stuff in there. So it's so funny that, like, people who are into the Bible or into Christianity will make fun of, oh my God, you believe in this, oh, you know, and they make fun of you and all that kind of stuff for being far out there. When the Bible is pretty far out too. Like, you have to believe in some pretty crazy stuff to believe in the Bible. And you know, it's just part of it. It takes faith. Supernatural realms exist, and they're kind of iffy. They're blurry. We don't know everything. We don't have it all figured out. It would be too easy then, you know. But I really do think that, you know, bringing all these conversations together, there's something you can glean from, you know. Like, if we look at like I said, the disciples, the apostles, the prophets, like, those were some really spiritual people who were stargazing, who were in contact with God, the voice of God, the cloud of God, the fire of God. You know what I'm saying? They seen crazy miracles because they believed it. And they trusted that inner intuition, that inner guidance system, that inner GPS to move from one realm to the next. Like, the voice of those angels, those dreams, getting an angel speaking to you in your dreams. Like, that's pretty crazy, right? But we have those conversations. Like, it's real. It takes a level of faith. But a lot of times I think it comes with an encounter first for a lot of people. You just follow the encounter. And then for others, maybe they believe. It starts with the imagination, and then the encounters kind of catch up with the imagination or your belief system, which comes before the other. This thing is probably different for everybody. You know, like I say, I think I'm doing most of the stuff I'm doing today started out from those early encounters I had as a little kid, you know. Seeing beings in my room and letting me know that something existed, like something's going on. We can't really put our fingers on it and say this is what it. Okay, that was demons from the seventh dimension who came to check on me, or came to extract my DNA, or came to put fear in my heart. Like, it's slippery. All of it is, every single bit of it, and it moves into realms when people start doing this stuff, where they move into a realm where they just start making it up as they go. And where do you make it up from? You pull it out of your imagination. You know, there are those people that are in all of these realms. They're in Christianity. They're in the New Age circles. They are the Corey Goods, the David Wilcocks, the Emery Smiths. They are these people who make this stuff up as they go. Like, are they having these encounters, or are they just really good storytellers? Some of these people are just really good storytellers. And if you say something with a level of authority, the masses, the people looking for somebody to follow, the people looking for truth, a lot of times they'll believe it hook, line, and sinker. Just because the way you present it as a Jordan Maxwell, as a Bill Donahue. Oh man, Bill Donahue this. Like, if you say it like it's real, people will believe it, man. You know, But at the same time, you put yourself out there to belittle other people's beliefs or to say what's real and what isn't. Renee Ruiz says spiritual discernment. Shout out to Renee. How are you, my friend? Shout out to Jacob. What up, brother? Chris Garner, everybody holding us down in the chat. Jared. Yeah, Sherry says, once you fight demons, I think you keep your guard up a little more. Yeah, I do say that. I have, and because that's where I come from, right? Demonic realm. But then again, you don't want to have your guard up so that you're just shut down to everything. You know what I'm saying? So then it gets kind of block out all the, like, everything, or just call it, like, because there's those Christians out there who call everything demonic. They call everything is demons. You know, we don't want to be those people either. Expansion of the mind, expansion of the consciousness, but just, you know, Christy Folk says, follow Jesus. Follow Christ to a place unfathomed. See, that's the thing, man. For me, that's the safe zone. Like, that's the discernment. For me, is Christ. You know what I'm saying? Like, everybody's different, but for me, following Christ is a mystical experience. Going into those realms through Christ, having that relationship with Christ, with God, and if God opens up those doors, if you can believe for it, you can do it through Him, which I believe is the right way, which is, you know, but then again, you know, God is all. God is in a little bit of everything. So Christ in you, the hope of glory, Chris Barr says. Christ out of you is the manifestation of that glory. That's where we are. When you start a podcast and you finish it and you have more questions, maybe that's good. Maybe that's good. Exploration. Who knows? Who knows? I definitely don't. Yeah, I don't know about Tonas and making packs, but she does. If that's what you're looking for, there's something for everybody. There's a support group. They have a support group for that kind of stuff. And if that's what you're into, check out her website. I'm at a loss for words, guys. I can't keep doing this now. I love y'all, man. Hope the internet's been stable enough to broadcast this, but you know, you gotta be open. You gotta be open, man. You gotta be open-minded, or you're not gonna experience anything. Chris Barr says, see you on Discord. Yeah, I'll hang out in Discord. If y'all want to hang out, we will have some conversation. If you are looking for community, looking for support group, if you're looking to discuss these episodes, that's where we do it. Discord. It's a chat app. You can chat via text, and you can also get into voice chat with us. The app link is in the description. You can download it on your phone or your computer. Make sure you hang out with us over there. We got some really cool people, really cool community that we have over there. So if you're looking for community, join us there. Be sure to support the work, support the podcast on Patreon, patreon.com/TruthSeekah. It enables me to do this and have these crazy conversations. But everything that we're doing, everything that we're bringing to the table, I will say I'm excited about some of the newer music that I'm working on, and some of it's available there now. Make sure you go check that stuff out. Patreon.com/TruthSeekah. School of the Mystics, get access to that. And yeah, without that's pretty much it. That I'll plug the Audible as well, because Audible supports the show pretty good when people sign up. So if you want to download a free audiobook, head on over to audibletrial.com/TruthSeekah. audibletrial.com /TruthSeekah. The link is in the description as well. You get to download a free audiobook by signing up. It doesn't even cost you anything. You can sign up, get your free book, and then cancel, and you'll never be charged. But yeah, it's a really, really cool app. Audible is pretty dope. It's cool to have you listen to audiobooks when you got other stuff going on as well, multitasking or driving or whatever the case is. And it supports the show. Head on over there, check that out. You don't know what books to read. 2 books that I will definitely tell you to check out one is The Final Quest by Rick Joyner. That book changed my life, my view on spirituality, my view on spiritual warfare. Say that. And it's also another book, if you've already read that one, you can read The Alchemist by Paulo Coelho. That book is there as well. So make sure you go check out that stuff. And like I said, they support the show. I get a kickback on that. Chris Garner says, these other dimensions and alternative realities are a slippery slope. Best to have a grounded footing in Christ. Yeah. Start there. Because that's all the mystical experience you need. You have access to everything through Christ. You really do. Don't fight it. That's really what it comes back down to. And whatever Christ leads you to, you know what I'm saying? Like, do that. Approach it through Christ. If he leads you to the Ashtar Command, that's what he does. If he leads you to the Elohim, if he leads you to the Pleiadians, that's between you and him. You know what I'm saying? But yeah, go through Christ. He is the gate. He is the door. You know what I'm saying? Do it the right way. Don't get possessed. Protect your neck. For real. With that, I'm going to say peace and shalom. I'll see y'all in Discord. Love y'all. Peace.
Your will so much higher than mine. So much higher than mine. So much deeper than mine. So much deeper than mine.
Well, that does it for this episode, folks. To hear more episodes of the TruthSeekah podcast, head over to TruthSeekah.com. And if you're wanting to support the show and get rewards, go to our Patreon page at patreon.com/TruthSeekah.